These are my NFL DFS picks for week 13. Let's get on to the picks. What's going on, fantasy football fans? I'm your host, Hussein the Brain, and you're watching The Couch. The two games that I find myself targeting a lot in this week's slate are the Eagles-Dolphins game and also the Giants-Packers game. There's a lot of inconsistent players, a lot of boom or bust players, a lot of players with high ceilings, and also some great value picks there. And if you're wondering, okay, why am I saying high ceiling, boom or bust? Like, that sounds bad. For GPPs, actually, that's very good. We want those inconsistent players that can give us a lot of fantasy points. And hey, if they give us like 4 fantasy points, so be it. For quarterbacks, my favorite quarterback is Patrick Mahomes. Lamar Jackson is a QB that I won't be picking too much this week. And I think that's just a topic to be had. Like, who's my favorite QB? Am I going for Lamar Jackson? Mahomes is my number one guy. I'm going to go with him going against the Raiders. I feel like he has a very high ceiling, very high floor. Tyreek Hill is playing. Kelsey is playing. We're good to go. Patrick Mahomes, my number one guy. This video is sponsored by Prolytics. Prolytics offers a complete DFS tool suite with projections, including ceiling and floor projections. That's very important. Lineup optimizers, a weekly cheat sheet with the top picks and top stacks, as well as several other tools to help you win. Their modern machine learning AI technology is what really separates Prolytics from the competitors. Because of all the positive feedback from the Couch fam and other users, Prolytics has decided to keep partnering with us, and right now they're offering a 2-week free trial. So follow the link below in the description and use promo code COUCH to get your free 2-week trial. I use it every week and highly recommend it. Now back to the picks. Lamar Jackson, he has a high ceiling. Could be the highest ceiling actually, but his floor is very low because I think the Niners have a realistic shot at stopping Lamar Jackson. Now, will they stop him? Will they contain him? Probably not. But like I said, there's a very good chance to. Recently, Lamar has been on fire, and I think the Niners have the best chance of actually stopping him. A 23% chance that Lamar Jackson doesn't do extremely well, puts up like 19 fantasy points or 17 fantasy points, maybe 20 fantasy points, which is still pretty good, but not good enough for me to pick him. And that's why I'm not going with him so much. Hey, I could be totally wrong. Let's see what happens. And I'm going with percentages here, so I don't know. And I'm saying, hey, 23% chance he's not going to be worth picking in a GPP. The quarterback I really do like is Aaron Rodgers. Like I was saying, this game right here, going against the Giants. And Aaron Rodgers is pretty much boom or bust. We see him, look, 30 fantasy points against the Chiefs, 47 fantasy points against the Raiders, 30 fantasy points there. And then we have a lot of games where it's like around 10 fantasy points. He's actually done that 4 or 5 times. Yeah, so about half the time he gives you like 10 fantasy points, and the other half of the time he gives you like 30 fantasy points. And that's really the trait we want in a GPP quarterback. Jameis Winston's kind of growing on me. I feel like he'll be overlooked. It might be contrarian. I think he will be. You see the Jaguars, and they're not that good of a defense, but they were a couple years ago. They kind of have that name recognition. So I think maybe some people will be off Jameis Winston. I think Aaron Rodgers is an easier conclusion to jump to. And Patrick Mahomes, but not so much Jameis Winston. So he is growing on me. Another quarterback I really like is Jared Goff. He's been absolutely horrendous. Look at the last 3 weeks. He's been consistent. Sounds like a positive word, right? He's been very consistent the last 3 weeks. My God. 6 fantasy points, 6 fantasy points, 6 fantasy points. Hasn't thrown a touchdown in 3 weeks. This Rams team is completely falling apart. But hey, this is definitely the bounce back game for Jared Goff. Going against the Cardinals, they allowed the most fantasy points to quarterbacks Price at 6,000 is pretty good. I do see a big bounce back game from Jared Goff. Some other quarterbacks to consider at cheaper prices. Foles going against the Buccaneers. They allow the second most fantasy points to the quarterback position. Danny Dimes, he is an ideal GPP quarterback. We see him put up poop numbers like 8, 11, 15, 14. And then he's been the QB1. He's been a must-have in GPPs, putting up 40 fantasy points against the Bucs, 32 against the Lions, 34 against the Jets. So yeah, a great GPP quarterback every week because he's pretty much boom or bust, very inconsistent. I think also a little tidbit here, little Snapple fact. I think he leads the league in fumbles. My God, look at those fumbles. How do you fumble so much? You weren't even the starter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. No way! I thought he had like 9. He's got 14 fumbles. What the heck? Dang. Wow. Him and Chris Carson, imagine if him and Chris Carson were teammates. That would be crazy. All right, this is DFS video, guys. Let's be serious. Come on. Another punt. I'm not recommending him, but I did want to mention a punt right here. And it's not like wide receivers or running backs where you get a minimum price running back or super cheap running back compared to a guy like C-Mac. So it's not a big difference. Andy Dalton's 4,700, and the most expensive quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, is 7,400. So you're not saving too much. But I did want to mention this is a decent punt, one that I probably won't be picking in any lineups. Did want to mention him though. Good value. He'll do okay against the Jets. Don't see him putting up top 4 quarterback numbers, and that's what we do want in GPPs. But hey, I mean, he does have a realistic shot to be a top 10 quarterback, which isn't really saying much. For running backs, I was right about C-Mac last week. I also was wrong about C-Mac. So C-Mac did much better than I said he would. So I was wrong about that. But then again, I was right, kind of. I was more so wrong than right. But I was right just a little bit in that C-Mac was not the ideal GPP running back. He was still a good, worthy pick of a GPP running back, but it was more so Fournette and Derrick Henry. Even Chubb was a really good GPP running back who provided a lot more better value. This week, I'm back on the C-Mac train. Decent matchup against Washington. His usage is off the charts. I mean, we're seeing a LaDainian Tomlinson-like season from this guy, and I honestly didn't think that would ever happen, especially how running backs are being used. There's hardly any workhorses. I think he's worth the price. Everyone knows C-Mac is good. Why I don't need to convince you of these things. Saquon, I'm all in. Look, he hasn't been that good this year. He's been used incorrectly. But there's got to be a game where a player does good, right? Like, there's got to be a game where a player does bad and a player does good. And this has the makings for Saquon to do a lot of good things. Green Bay Packers against the run, not so good. Saquon's Barkley usage hopefully will go up. He can do it in the pass game. He can do it in the run game. I see a great bounce back opportunity for Barkley. Then again, I wouldn't be surprised if we see him get 11 fantasy points. I just wouldn't. It's fair. I see that. I also do see a 30-point fantasy game. The best performance he's had this year. I also see that being very realistic as well. He's priced 7,400 going against the Packers. Le'Veon Bell, I'm back on it again. I was wrong last week. He was meh, which he's been every week. He does the same thing, gives you 15, 16, 17 fantasy points. But man, is the matchup so good. And all he really needed last week was some more opportunities and to get in the end zone, but he didn't get a touchdown, and he still got you 16 fantasy points. So maybe they use him a little bit more, and he gets in the end zone a couple times going against the Bengals. This is an ideal. You can't get any better than this. Like, this is his best opportunity this year. 30 fantasy points, very realistic for Le'Veon Bell. Just give the man some more goal line touches, give him some more targets in the pass game, some more carries, and he'll get 30 fantasy points. Do you hear me, Mr. Adam Gase? He probably won't hear me. And then we have Aaron Jones, again, targeting the same game. He is the ideal GPP running back. You can't get any more boomer bust than this. 3 fantasy points last week. And before that, 30. Before that, 3. Before that, 40. 29. 50 fantasy points against the Cowboys. That's just insane. It's insane how boomer bust he is, and it's almost like every other game. I think a good piece to rotate off of from Aaron Jones is Jamal Williams. How many weeks? I think about 2 weeks. At least 2 weeks, Jamal Williams outperformed Aaron Jones, so it's very realistic. Okay, so I actually counted, and Jamal Williams outperformed Aaron Jones 3 times, 3 out of 11. That's pretty good. Moving on, Miles Sanders. I think he'll be a bit chalky if Jordan Howard is out. So keep tabs on Jordan Howard. So he's got a double-edged sword here. He's going to be good, has a lot of upside, has great matchup, great price, great value. And then on top of that, if Jordan Howard is out, it's going to boost Miles Sanders' fantasy points, his projections. But therefore, he's going to be even more chalky. So just be warned there. You go with Miles Sanders, you're going to probably eat a lot of chalk, especially if Howard is hurt. 100 cheaper than him is going to be Jonathan Williams, who'll be probably a little bit less chalky. That's what I'm thinking. Is Jonathan Williams a bit unknown, a bit mysterious? I still think he's great. And Marlon Mack is out. A matchup is not the best, but the price is good. He's, going to get you right here. 18 fantasy points. That's what I'm seeing. But still, just wanted to definitely mention him, especially because he was 100 less than Miles Sanders. I think Miles Sanders will be a little bit more hyped than Jonathan Williams. And then we have the Chiefs running backs, who I'm going to go for. Like, we have a good rotational piece here. You got LaShawn McCoy, who's 4,800. Should be the starting running back for the Chiefs. Damian Williams is out. So then we have Darrell Williams, who's priced at 4,400. Where you at? Okay, 4,400 right there. And he's been pretty good when other running backs have been hurt. He's produced pretty good numbers. So, and also they're easy to interchange. So if you got LaShawn McCoy in a lineup, boom, just import that lineup and then replace LaShawn McCoy with Darren Williams, maybe replace another player. So now we got a very similar lineup, all the same core players, and maybe you rotate like 2, 3, or 4 players in that second lineup. And just wanted to mention, we already talked about Jamal Williams. He's priced 4,500 going against the Giants, of course. And if you're looking for a punt, not recommending this or anything, but Jay Ajayi is there. He'll get some carries if Jordan Howard is out. We saw his first game where he did actually play. He got 6 carries. Didn't do well, but was a little bit of a tough defense. Now he's going against one of the worst defenses, Miami. He'll probably get a few more carries than 6. And we also have Darwin Thompson, who I'm not necessarily recommending or anything, but I'm saying, hey, keep tabs on the news. Maybe some news comes out that, hey, Darwin Thompson's going to see some work. So it might be a good punt. As of now, expect him to touch the ball 1 time. All right. So just fair warning. Like, as of right now, don't pick Darwin Thompson, but if you get some rumors, some word that he'll be featured more, he probably won't, but just throwing that out there. Damian Williams is hurt. Darwin Thompson's priced at 3,000. Sticking to my theme of not going over a ton of, popular picks and obvious picks, like Cooper Kupp, good bounce back candidate. I already talked about Jared Goff. So if I like Jared Goff, obviously you can stack him with guys like Cooper Kupp or Robert Woods. We'll get into the tight end in the next position. We're going to talk about, obviously, Tyreek Hill against the Raiders. I like Mahomes. Some obvious guys, right? Let's talk about a little bit less obvious, and that's Devontae Adams. How good is Mike Thomas this year? Very, very good. Elite. He's setting records. I mean, he's just so good. People may have forgotten that last year, Devontae Adams was actually the Mike Thomas. A lot of people ranked Devontae Adams number 1 or number 2 wide receiver coming into the season. And that's because he was very good and very consistent. He was the most consistent, most reliable fantasy football player, especially wide receiver, who no one was consistent last year at wide receiver, and he was really that good and that consistent, and he's sort of coming back to that role right now, giving you that guaranteed 20 fantasy points. Guaranteed, nothing's really guaranteed, but you get it. So 7,000, when Mike Thomas would cost maybe just above 9,000, you can get Davante Adams for 7,000 right now. The matchup is perfect. Aaron Rodgers has been force feeding him targets. Expect double-digit targets. Of course, the Packers will run the ball quite a bit, but if Adams gets a couple big plays, which he definitely has the ability to, and some touchdowns, that's great. Look, price is not so bad. I want to talk about Mike Evans versus Chris Godwin. And last week I said I like Godwin slightly more if I had to pick, and that ended up working out for me big time. So this week it's the same ordeal, but I'm flopping him. So everyone else is going with the Godwin hype train. I like Evans slightly more than Godwin. I think the targets will be there. The plays down the field, at least targeting him down the field, will be there. He just has to catch the ball and get in the end zone. So a little bit more boom or bust than Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin's much safer, but I do like Mike Evans to score more fantasy points this week. I see him having a slightly higher ceiling, more air yards. Godwin's going to probably have to get some yak if he wants to score big. A little bit more touchdown potential. And so I just wanted to compare those two. I like Mike Evans slightly more than Chris Godwin. Going into the cheaper players, we have Alshon Jeffrey priced at 5,100 going against the Dolphins. Should be able to go, should be healthy, but we'll see. He has been injured, has missed the last couple games. Let's see if he's going to play. He's trending towards playing. I do expect him to play. Then we have Sterling Shepard, 4,900 going against the Packers. Evan Ingram is out. Rhett Ellison is out too, I believe, the backup tight end. And Golden Tate is out with a concussion. Sterling Shepard will get a lot of targets. And then we have a Nelson Aguilar, and I really like this one a lot. Will be matched up against a really bad cornerback. Dolphins may concentrate on stopping guys like Ertz if he's able to go, who has a hamstring injury, and Alshon Jeffrey if he's able to go with that ankle injury. And Nelson Aguilar has been really popular this year with that Aguilar meme, with him dropping a lot of balls. Just a lot of negative talk about Aguilar, so people won't be picking him too much. Now, the chance that Aguilar outscores Alshon is realistic, unlikely. Let's say about 25%, but oh boy, if that happens, 4,400, he'll return value and then some, and also be contrarian. So if you got Aguilar and you faded Alshon and even just one lineup, and then Aguilar, gets you 20 plus fantasy points, that's going to be nuts, because 20 fantasy points is what you expect from a guy like Davante Adams. And Aguilar has shown that he could do that. Now, this year is not his year. Look, he hasn't been good. I'll admit it. It's not looking good, but this is the type of matchup where good things can happen. He's going against the Dolphins. Look, Week 2, 27.7 fantasy points. Week 3, 24 fantasy points. So it can happen. Like, it most definitely can happen. And he's been pretty good the last couple years. Not great, but he's been okay. Let's see how he does. I like him. Devontae Parker is an obvious pick, but you may also want to consider guys like Allen Hurns or Albert Wilson. And I do love Albert Wilson as a cheap value pick. I think he's going to be good. I like him if he's playing in the slot. I think he's going to go match up against the weakest cornerback on the Eagles. So you do want to note that. Also, just like I talked about Aguilar, a good pivot from a guy like Devontae Parker, who's getting a little bit pricey, a little too pricey maybe for a Dolphins receiver. And Zach Pascal gets a lot of hype, right? So we're going with Chester Rogers, who is priced at, wow, that is really cheap, 3,400. Look at all the scrolling I had to do to find this guy. Chester Rogers, 3,400. Zach Pascal's teammate. And if the Titans really try to clamp down on Zach Pascal as the number one wide receiver, T.Y. Hilton is out, Chester Rogers could be open on some plays. He has a decent quarterback, Jacoby Brissett, and look at that price. Oh man, $3,400. That's cheap, cheap, cheap. Moving on to tight ends, we do have some great punts, some pretty good mid-range or mid to expensive range price tight ends. Actually, a lot of good tight ends, but Kelce is such a good matchup, and he's been balling the last few weeks that I think he's well worth the price. Just below him, you have guys like Ertz, Kittle, Henry, Andrews, Waller, and even though Kelce is significantly more expensive than them, I still like him. I recommend him in cash. I recommend him in GPP. He's well worth the price. Now, if you have him, like, you really need to enter more than one lineup if you're doing GPP. That's just my recommendation. You got to stuff these contests to really win a big pool GPP. And I mean, you don't have to enter 150 times or even 50 times, but like 20 times, that's a good sweet spot. I know that's insane. That's crazy. It's a lot, but that's how a lot of people do win it. I do see people that don't know what they're doing and only enter one lineup. I do see them taking down a big GPP. It's just so much more unlikely. Like, the chances of you winning go up. Not like twofold. If you enter two contests, it's not twofold. It's more than twofold because you're having a lot of different players. You know, it's just your chances go up so much more. Anyway, going off on a tangent. We do have some better value players. So that's the thing. If you pick Kelce and he only gets you like 12 fantasy points or 13 or even only gets 15 fantasy points, it's probably not going to be good enough when a cheap tight end is going to go get you 17 fantasy points and really say, you know, a tight end that's half of Kelce's price. So did want to make that clear that I do absolutely love him this week, but the price is very, very expensive. Almost like a Christian McCaffrey-ish type of price. He's so expensive. Zach Ertz, look, he has a good matchup. He's questionable, so if he plays, he should be good. But I'd rather go with, I think, Dallas Goedert at 4,100. Just so much value right there. And man, look at this. 8 targets. 6 before that, 5 before that, 5 before that, 4, 8. So he's been getting a lot of targets the last few weeks and been doing pretty well. And like I compared Jamal Williams to Aaron Jones, there's been nearly half the time Goddard has outperformed Zach Ertz. That's got to mean something, right? The cheaper tight end, quote unquote backup tight end. And PFF actually has him graded really close. So Dallas Goedert is really good. He'll soon be the real tight end on the Eagles. I do like Mark Andrews. I think he's going to perform better than Waller. Waller will get his targets, but I don't know if his efficiency will be good. I just don't see him being efficient. Mark Andrews is going against that defense that has that number 1 next to him. Niners defense allows the fewest fantasy points to the tight end position, but one of the reasons that's true is because the Niners haven't played too many good tight ends. For instance, they played the Arizona Cardinals twice, and we all know the Cardinals don't even use a tight end really. And so the stats are a little misleading. With that being said, Niners just overall have a great defense. But I think Mark Andrews is going to be the go-to guy here. Some cheaper options, and we do have some really good cheap options. Jonnu Smith is kind of hasn't really been doing anything, but keep in mind Delaney Walker is out. Jonnu Smith could have a huge bounce back game going against the Colts, priced at 3,300. And then we have Jack Doyle, same price, 3,300. He'll probably be a bit chalky with Eric Ebron now on IR. Absolutely love Jack Doyle. He'll be getting a lot of snaps, a decent amount of targets. And we all know Brissett and Jack Doyle has made some sweet PPR music in the past. And I do have a couple punts. This one is going to be very contrarian. I don't think is well known. With Rhett Ellison out and Evan Ingram out, we have Caden Smith. Look at this, 6 targets, 5 receptions, 1 touchdown, 12.7 fantasy points. I think he can do some things. And if you're paying $2,900 for a tight end like this that's not well known, you shouldn't have much expectations. You should consider him a boom or bust candidate, a flyer, a punt, whatever you want to call it. Don't expect much. Don't blame me. Don't say mean things about me if you pick Caden Smith and he doesn't work out. It's not my fault. And then we have Tyler Higbee. hasn't been doing much this year, but last year he did some things. Gerald Everett's kind of emerged this year, and so Higbee has basically been a non-factor. But now that Gerald Everett is out and Higbee's going up against the sweetest of all tight end matchup, Cardinals allow the most fantasy points to the tight end position. I do like him. Super great value pick. Minimum priced $2,500. He'll be a little bit chalky, but oh boy, if you need salary cap relief, $2,500. That's what? That's a third of the price of Travis Kelce. I like Tyler Higbee, $2,500. For defenses, let's keep it simple. Eagles D, my number 1 defense, priced at $3,600. I think they're worth the price. My number 2 defense is the Panthers, and they're more expensive. So I do project the Eagles outscoring the Panthers as far as fantasy is concerned. And on top of that, the Panthers are a little bit more expensive. I think other people will figure the same thing or share the same opinion I have about those two. Then we have the Packers defense. Now, I like this defense as a boom or bust. Everything's boom or bust with the Packers. That's how it is. Very opportunistic defense that started out hot, double-digit fantasy points the first 3 weeks, and since then they haven't really been that good. They have some good players. Danny Dimes, I already forgot how many fumbles. He's got 13 fumbles. He can turn the ball over. So the Giants offense has been known to poop from time to time. Danny Dimes, a rookie. Again, this is an expensive defense. I like the Giants offense this game. I see them putting up some points, but then again, they could do some bad things. So like I said, Packers D, boom or bust. Their price isn't that good. They will be contrarian. Not that we need to be contrarian at every position. Here's a little bit more of a chalky pick. Chargers going against the Broncos. So we know that Flacco's not starting, obviously. Brandon Allen, is he starting? I'd say probably not. They haven't announced it yet, but Drew Lock is now off IR. I heard he's taking some reps with the first team, so I give about 51% chance. Let's make it 52.5% chance that Drew Lock is going to start. What does that mean? I don't know. We haven't seen him play. Can't be much worse than Brandon Allen and Flacco, but maybe could be. Maybe he'll be more prone to turn the ball over. I don't know, but I know that the Chargers are 3,100 going against the Broncos. Broncos probably won't put up a ton of points. And even if Drew Lock is okay, they did just trade away Emmanuel Sanders. They haven't really done much this year. Not a prolific offense. I think this will be a low scoring game. At least low scoring from the Broncos end. And those are all my picks for week 13. Make sure you guys do check out Prolytics. Just follow the link below in the description. Use my promo code Couch. You'll get a free 2-week trial. And also, it really helps support this channel. Make sure you guys are subscribed to both our YouTube channels. We got Fantasy Couch. We also have a podcast, Fantasy Couch Podcast. We have a YouTube channel for that. So subscribe to both. Both our channels. Like this video if you enjoyed it. Dislike if you didn't. Go get that W this week, Couch fam. I wish you all good luck.